A warm welcome to A Podful of Saints. We're on to Series 5. That's 5 years we'll have been going by the end of this one. But it feels longer. We're recording this on Wednesday, the 12th of July, 2023, with myself, David Tavener, and a beaming Lee Wood over there.
Tavs, Jacob, how are we, boys? It's like we've never, ever been away. Tavs, you've got a bit of colour, mate. How are things on the Costa del Dunstable? All things going well?
I think this comes, Lee, from last Thursday going up on the glider flight, and I think the pilot was too close to the sun. So it's the aftermath of that. Anyway, you mentioned a Jacob there. Jake Ellacott, how are you?
Hello, Dave. Hello, Lee. Hello, everyone. Oh, it's been a while, isn't it? Oh, let's get going.
Yeah, here we are. Same old props, same old scripts, but even older faces. Here we go then.
Ooh.
Number 1, Series 5. Actually, I want to end on a quick note about last season. That game at Oxford, we've had a time to reflect on it now. Was it a good thing for the club, but it actually didn't go up that day? Were we ready for the Conference National or National League, whatever they call it these days? Or is another year experience for David Noble and John Meeks at this level and a few other things for the club better for the club?
No, you want to go up, don't you? I mean, we'll never know. We'll never know. But the thing is, you're in it to win it, surely, Tabs. And I know that, you're sort of preempting obstacles further down the line, and that's fine. But, you've got to be there. I mean, if you ask anyone, they want to go up, surely. Promotion is what you're in it for. Success is what you're in it for. And from that, us getting promoted stems, better quality of players, more fans. The riches far outweigh the fact that we are consolidating another year in this league. But, it's where we are. It's what happened. And we've got to just face the music and move on.
Which way do you go with that, Jake?
Yeah, I agree with Lee. I mean, I'd argue Oxford City certainly didn't look like a club that were ready for life in the National League on the day. I mean, that was the match day experience wasn't great, was it? So, I think it's similar for them, but they seem to be reaping it up, loving it. I'm sure this is, their supporters cannot wait for the football in a couple of weeks in the National League. And so, yeah, I exactly sort of repeat what Lee says, but I say we've got to move on as well, haven't we? Sadly.
Right. Lee touched on there, a better class of player required had we gone into the Conference National or National League. And of course, our summer dealings have seen 6 players come into the club, but I believe now a 7th has just joined, Nathan Carlisle. So it's 5 defenders out of the 7 new signings. But we've lost a known 13 players, and the whereabouts of 3 more are up for grabs as well. Where should we start? Departures? One by one. Well, obviously, as soon as the final whistle went at Oxford, we lost 5 players straight away, the loan players. I don't agree with the loan system because you're not building a team. And that emphasised the point in one whistle. So we look at the other players. Kadam Adebayo, surprised he's gone?
Yes. Real surprise, actually. I think he wasn't the greatest at all times, was he? But I think towards the end of the season, he's proven himself to be a sort of a stable base at the heart of that defence. I thought, he could score the odd goal, but he was reliable, wasn't he? I think we've sung his praise quite a few times in last season. Again, we also sort of at times were very open with how he wasn't the best defender at this level, but I thought he performed well. And we talked, didn't we, towards the end of last season, that whatever happens this season, we would have a core there of a squad to build upon. And I think someone like Kadam Adebayo, I expected to be around as part of that core. At least the club would fight quite hard for him to be as part of that core. So definitely a surprise for me.
I think he's gone to Cheshire United. What about Tafari Morley? I think that was a bigger surprise.
Disappointed. I don't think it's surprising, if I'm honest. I think the fact that he was an ex-pro and he was sort of trying to rebuild his career coming through the leagues. Him and Devontae, the fact is they were our biggest, attacking outlets at times at the season. They were really that real energetic spark we needed when things weren't always going our way. You could often rely on both, if not certainly one of them, to sort of kick things into life. Disappointed, not surprising. It's different if you're progressing someone and they go to league football, give them a punt. That's fair enough. The club have always had that stance where they're never going to step in the way of someone trying to progress their career. The fact that Tafari, I mean, okay, he's gone up to a team above us, but is it a progression? Not really. I don't think so. Devontae, I mean, that's the biggest one for me. I mean, he's gone to Haven, and you don't know. As I say, we don't know how things have panned out in the conversations between these players and the club. However, I think if you go to Haven, it's pretty much nailed on that you're chasing a few quid, aren't you? You know, the fact is that he could have stayed with us, progressed. The fact of the matter is, he doesn't really owe us anything. He gave us all. He gave us his all, Tafari and Devontae, whole of last year. We couldn't have asked for any more. But does that mean that, you know, it's one and done for them? You know, they now think they're better than the club. Contract negotiations may have broken down. They may have already thought that they're bigger and better than what they are currently, so therefore they've got to go and promote themselves. We don't know. It's disappointing. Progression is one thing. Chasing a pound note is another thing. And I think I'm more upset with Devontae because I thought he was better than that.
Talking about progression there, back to you, Jake. Joy McKenna.
I'll be honest, a real surprise, at least where he's landed. I didn't expect seeing him land in League Two. Although Neil Metcalf put a comment on Twitter to support her last week saying, given the state of the club he's arrived at, maybe we shouldn't be surprised. But, you know, Joy was a young player who kicked on really well. I think especially last season, I think he really did improve. Before that, again, Lee, I think you weren't the biggest member of the Joy McKenna fan club, were you? But I think towards the end of last season, I think you even said that you'd sort of come round to how he'd sort of improved, especially under Nobby. And I think we'd seen that. So I think brilliant for him to get a move to the Football League, which is great to see. And I don't think anyone would ever sort of say no to that. I think everyone says fair play, best of luck. But yeah, still, I think when you look at all these changes in defence, it does make you worry, doesn't it? Considering the amount of players we have lost over the summer.
I don't think it's any great surprise that Chris Paul, Liam Soul, and Manash Sundar have left the club. Manash fell out towards the end, the others way before that. But Joe Neal, did you think there's a chance we might just keep him on as a squad player? Obviously not as a forward.
For what? For what purpose? I mean, but let's not make this about, you know, sort of we're just condemning people. The fact is that he came in with so much promise and he started quite brightly. You know, he had a really good game at Hemel away, etc. And he ran. Dulwich away, he was decent. The fact of the matter is, though, is the fact that Nobby wasn't selecting him to start. And he made it quite clear he was only going to be an impact player. And listen, he has his 15 minutes in the sun, doesn't he? You know, the penalty at Dartford will always live long. So that's fine. But it just wasn't good enough for this level. And I think we need people to provide now, and we need people to absolutely score and bang the ball into the back of the net. And the fact is, we still don't know what Nobby thinks of the Jeffers situation and how he now fits into proceedings. We need people to hit the ground running, and I think there's a platform there for players to come in that they know they need to deliver and fit into the system that Nobby's going to implement. And Joe Neal didn't do that, unfortunately.
Looking at the new players, Daniel Bowery from Worthing, Bobby Dunn from Dartford, who only played 3 games there, Raul de Silva from Cheshunt, Andronicus Giorgio from Kings Langley, Jack James from Gloucester, Sam Brown from Banbury, and now another one today, Nathan Carlisle from Weymouth. Any names grab you or excite either of you there?
I think Bowery from Worthing, I think, is one that could be a real leader at the back. I think that's interesting to see. And the lad from Dartford, I know he didn't play much, but he could be the sort of player that Nobby likes, young, a lot of build to play with there and sort of attacking areas. But I think what I'd say about all those signings generally, I think to me, they look like solid signings. Almost all of them have experience at this level, some of them more than ever others. The 2 fullbacks from the National League North, be quite interested to see how they get on. Of course, we know the National League North is a bit more of a physical league and quite a difficult league, really, compared to the South. And they've got big boots to fill. But I don't know. It's a lot of players that seem solid, but do they have that spark to replace some of these players that were really quite exceptional for us at times last season.
If you look
It's
at them,
really
though,
interesting.
mate, you look at them, they've all got like a winning mentality. They've always been involved in promotion somewhere along the line. You know, they've got that. There's a calibre there. Bowery, Bobby Dunn, for me, is probably the one to look out for. I think, you know, he's got some pedigree there. One thing I would say, I was speaking to the fellas at Gloucester, and they rave about Jack James. You know, as I say, he was a bit younger, obviously, when he was there, but his work ethic is absolutely superb. And I think that's probably what we're looking for. You know, that quality on the ball, time on the ball, confidence, but also speed. I think Nobby's trying to sort of speed things up even more so than he did for this time last year. So hopefully all of these signings, the only thing that I would say is that Nobby's got a bit of time now to get them sort of gel together, but he's got to do it quickly.
I was out with a couple of people last week who know the non-league game at this level rather well. And Bobby Dunn, they mentioned him. He went to Dartford, what, about March, wasn't it? And he only played 3 games. Apparently, he's had a few injury problems recently, so we've got to hope those are behind him. Because we've got Romeo Akinola. Has he gone now, do we know? A long-term injury one?
I mean, we haven't announced his departure, have we? So I presume he's either left the club, we just haven't announced it, or he's still part of the club. He was at the end of season awards, wasn't he? Before the playoffs,
he was.
So.
He's not in the squad we got listed on the website, so one assumes he's not there anymore. Right, the other ones, say about successful. Real de Silva's in a relegated club last year, Lee. So was Giorgio at Kings Langley. Hopefully they're not scarred by those matters. Giorgio, of course, we had him before, didn't we? He played 8 games for us under Ian, 3 or 4 years ago. Didn't complete any of those 8 games.
He's the one that surprised me in terms of signing so far that I didn't really expect. He's not really done much at this level, has he, after he left us? We'll see how he gets on. I wonder if that's a bit more of a punt from Nobby. I'd be interested to see how he would fit into the system as well, because from what I remember, he was a bit more of a wide player that used to stick out wide, whereas obviously Nobby last season, we saw wide players that like to cut inside and attack in those central positions, interchanging with Jeffers, etc. And, you know, some of those players sometimes always playing as that central player. So it'd be interesting to see how he fits in. But, you know, players I think that have been in relegated sides or in teams that have conceded a lot of goals this season or last season, I do understand why fans might be worried about that. But also, I don't care at this stage of the season. I say this stage of the season, we're only a week in. Like, we'll see how they get on in a team that actually is looking to win games. You know, I'm sure they won't be scarred, and I'm sure they've learned a lot from those experiences of being in relegation feared sides. But I don't think we've got to give these lads a chance, haven't we? Before we start writing them off when they've just signed.
Yeah, but what I was saying,
I don't think they'll be scarred.
Yeah. No, not at all. But the thing is that there are some fans who are like, "Oh my God, we've lost Devontae and we've lost Joy and we've lost Callum and we've lost Tafari." That's fine, you know, that happens in football. But the players that are brought in, they want to be here. They want to be at this club, and I think that counts for a lot in this day and age when, you know, loyalty means nothing anymore. You know, agents are running the absolute roost, and I think it's very important the fact that, you know, these guys may not be on bundles. So have a look at them. If it doesn't work out, then, you know, we can chop and change accordingly. It's a fresh slate for Nobby. He is literally, even at this stage now, he's still, you know, learning on a week-by-week basis. He's got to deal with agents. He's got to deal with budgets. He's got to deal with new players, new egos, new attitudes, all of that. That's going to take time to build. The defence has been decimated. So that's now another target for him. And he's got to work on that. But he's got time to play with. So I think come Saturday, we're going to see some chopping and changing. He doesn't really know what his squad will look like come the start of the season. That's why he's got so many players. He wants to give himself the biggest opportunity to give the best quality squad available for when we start the league.
2 other players missing from the squad that's on the website. Hugh Dawson, heard a rumour last week that he was on his way and he's not on a retained list as yet, so maybe there's something in that, maybe not. And Karen Wiltshire, he got that injury at the end of last season. And again, speculation yet. I heard that injury is rather serious and he's not on that retained list. Have you 2 heard anything?
I think we'd heard the same about the injury, hadn't we, Lee? So I guess we wait and see, don't we, in terms of retained. I think if he's gone or if he's just not in the squad because of the injury, I think he's going to be a huge miss in that central midfield area, isn't he? And that central midfield area is certainly somewhere that probably, needs a bit of work over the summer if you're losing someone like Kyran, because, he was very good at times last season. Again, he had that experience at the National League South level, didn't he? Which, it's all well and good taking punts on players at certain times, but you do need teams full of National League South experience. And I think Nobby's done that so far, but there's positions in the squad that still do need that before the season starts in August.
You're right about the midfield, Jake, because according to the website, you've got Ryan Blackman, Ben Smith, and Bobby Dunn midfield. I suppose you could take out the forward line, which they've included forwards, Zane Banton and Andronicus Georgiou, and maybe you play them deeper. But you're right, that does look as though it needs strengthening. In fact, that squad, including Nathan Carlisle, is only 15 players strong, so it's well under strength at the moment. And with that high exit of players and relatively few coming in, half a number have come in and have gone out, it looks as though Nobby is going to be relying strongly again on the loan system. And bear in mind the way agents are offering players left, right and centre, you can see that's going to happen.
Potentially, and I mean, I wouldn't say no to us getting some good quality loans in again, but that we're not going to see that till at least August, are we? Until leagues further up the teams further up the pyramid assess their squads and think of where they want players to be. So, I mean, we know Shea Cooper, Glenn McConnell, etc. I'm not saying we're going to sign them again, but we know they're involved in their first team squads this summer, and management are taking a look at them. But also, I think, like Lee hinted at a minute ago, I wouldn't be shocked if for these first couple of friendlies we see quite a few trialists in these games for Saints. I mean, again, that's not a bad thing. If we can pick up a couple of trialists that look good and they perform well for us, then potentially, that's not bad, is it? So it'll be really interesting to see. I think this Cambridge game, like Lee says, I think will be a real indication of the squad, how it's shaping up, whether it's filled with, quite a few academy lads or a few trialists. It'll be really interesting to see.
That Cambridge game this coming Saturday is at 1 o'clock kickoff, isn't it? It's you two were saying off air. It's got an unusual format.
Yeah, apparently it's 4 30-minute halves. It kicks off 1 o'clock. So see how that goes.
All the fun of the fair, fellas. One thing I would say, Taz, you know how this pans out, mate. You've been going down to City for like 150 years or whatever. You know that there are players still holding out for bigger contracts and a better payday. The fact is, the closer the start of the season gets, the more their nerve starts to sort of twitch a little bit. And that's when we sort of can pick up some bargains here and there. And also, in terms of like Kyran Wiltshire, the fact that he's injured. So the club aren't going to offer him a new deal when he's injured. He could still be a good part of 6 months away. If you offer him a deal now, you've got to pay him for however long he's injured for. So maybe the club have said to him, right, no problem, get yourself fit, come down, we'll look at you, and if you're good again, then we'll offer you a deal. But that's how some clubs do that. I'm not saying we do that, but that would make the perfect sense in this entire situation. So you never know. Players are going to come and players are going to go. We want the ones that want to play for St Albans City, and it all starts on Saturday.
Yeah, you're looking at that list. We haven't got anything you say is a big star name, which people will say, blimey, look, St Albans have got him. I think you made a point earlier, they're all similar sort of level, probably going to be like what we got now, which is why a player like Glenn McConnell stands out so much, because you get these players all the same. So these other players you're saying, Lee, they might get twitchy. Maybe it's still time for us to pick up a name, but I would have thought we're leaving it a bit late now.
They are, but don't forget, mate, it's very easy to sort of suggest that it's the club to do with the budget and the money or the lack of aspiration. There have been times that I myself have accused the owners of being tighter than a nun's twinkle, but ultimately it's their money, right? So they've got to look at it, and they're not just going to start splashing out the cash willy-nilly. They've got to trust in David Noble, okay? He's got some scouting network around him. He knows what's best. And you refer there to the loan system. We didn't sort of do too badly out of it, did we, in the last sort of 8 months? So, and through that, and the way that those players have progressed, there's going to be connections made, and there's going to be trust that has been built over the course of that time. So, hold your nerve, and let's see what will be, because ultimately we're still three weeks away from the start of the season. That's a lot of football. Yeah. That's a lot of conversation. And that's a lot of time for players to make their feelings known.
And also,
I agree with you. Sorry, go on, Jake. Yeah, come.
Sorry, I was going to say, Nobby's one permanent signing last season, Ryan Blackman. He didn't turn out that bad, did he? I know it was an initial loan, but that's not bad. And also, you have to remember that at this level this season, the National League South there's a lot of pretty big teams in the division this season, but also teams around us that are spending money as well. Quite a few teams have had either takeovers or investments of funds over the summer. There's a lot of players bringing in quite a lot of players this summer. So there's a lot of turnover, and I suspect, like Lee says, there's going to be a lot of players, come a couple of weeks thinking, God, I need to sign somewhere. What about that club that got to a playoff final? So we'll see.
You sort of talk about the money, Jake. A couple of people said to me, where is the FA Cup money? Has it been spent by now or whatnot? Our budget from the outside doesn't look any bigger than it was at the start of that season. And you look around the club, we've got a load more paid members of staff off the pitch. We've got a lot of work going on around the ground, which I know you two are going to come on to. All this is costing money. And are we seeing it going into a team? I'm not knocking the budget or whatnot. I can only guess at what it is. But you wonder, is that really pushing for it, or are they just hoping to get some good loan players again to get us over the line that way?
I'm sure that Nobby's still got budget to play for in terms of permanent signings. I'm sure there's still space there. And like Lee said, I think David will very much be thinking of the thought of, I want players that actually want to play for this club and put their all in and play in front of these fans, big crowds. But then on the other hand, if I was Nobby, I'd be going to the owners and saying, look at what we managed to achieve for the crowds at the end of last season, 15, 1,600, 3,500 on the final day. If you give me a squad that will give me a budget that I can compete with, top 10, say, at least, then I can give you these crowds and the money that comes in on match days from it and the growth of the support. So it's a balancing act, and it's really interesting.
But don't forget, this is a silly time of year when, clubs do go out and get like a marquee signing. And don't forget, they don't always pay off. We've had our fingers stung a lot before. I'm reading us some names for your tabs. Andy Linnigan, he was on big money. Loic Pires, he was on. I mean, what an absolute farce. We can always go out and get these big marquee players, but we got our marquee player last year in re-signing Shaun Jeffers. He's on a 2-year deal. He's on a lot of money, and there's not to say as well when Zanes signs up again, he's on a bit more cash. All these players that sign up for like a new year, they would have got a little bit more cash, and that all adds up. And I agree with you. I think there could be room there for the owners to say, we you know what, we loved the route that we went to. We loved the fact we were almost there. Here's a bit more, David. But don't forget, it's an unknown entity for the owners. David hasn't got a history of dealing in the transfer market. They're probably going to be quite reserved in that aspect at the minute. If things do go well, or if things go badly and we need to sort of really look at ourselves, then I think there might be money there for us to sort of spend. But until that time comes, trust in the process and see where we are. Because the thing is, how many times have we gone out, spent loads of money on a massive big name player? They haven't always come off. Sometimes they have, but some not.
It's going to be interesting to see how Nobby works with Shaun Jeffers this summer, because he hasn't brought a proper goal-scoring striker into the club this summer. At the end of last season, very reluctant to start him in any games. How he uses him is going to be quite telling, you would have thought, for when we get round to the proper season.
Pivotal.
Absolutely. It goes into, surprise, surprise, Shaun Jeffers is one of the main storylines going into a season again. And yeah, it's going to be really important. As you see at the moment, in the rest of the team, you don't see a lot of goals, do you? So it'd be really to see what happens and whether Nobby brings in, say, an additional striker or a couple more attackers before the season starts, be that permanent or on loan. Because I think that could tell us a lot. Because at the moment, you've got Banton, Jeffers, Vice, and then supporting them, Dunn and Georgiou. To me, that suggests it's going to be Jeffers starting at the start of the season, as we'd expect.
But it also suggests, fellas, that it may have dawned on the management now that 30 goal a season strikers don't just knock on your door and ask to play for the club. When you've got one sitting on your bench, it's always sometimes it's the better devil that you know. And the fact is that Shaun Jeffers scores goals and wins games for this football club, and there's no better way to start a clean slate than this season.
So this summer, just the 5 pre-season friendly matches, about half of what we've been having recent years. Happy with that?
There might be a few more added, some low key ones just to get some fitness. But I mean, listen, long gone are the days. I mean, there will be supporters watching this, and they won't believe us when we tell them we used to regularly play Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea, Luton, all first teams, not their kids and the dinner ladies. This is genuine first teamers that come down the park. But obviously, the football and pre-season, it's another money spinning opportunity for now for these Premier League clubs. I've got some friends. I do a bit of work for Hitchin Town, and they always used to rely on the fact that Luton used to bring their first team down as the first pre-season game of the season for them, and it always used to give them a really welcome early season kitty to play with. Luton fans would, congregate on force, and they would spend whatever. The fact is now, even though Luton are now in the Premier League, and they can't honour the fact they've got to send a first team to Hitchin. The times of big name teams coming to the park, unfortunately, are long gone. That's no disrespect to Cambridge United, who come to the park on Saturday. But it's good for the pay, it's good for the coffers, Tavs. But ultimately, with such a inexperienced, individual squad that we've got at the minute, we need games where they're going to be competitive and form those partnerships and get that fitness up and get time knowing each other. So it's not the worst case scenario, mate.
No,
I'm happy with 5. Sorry, Jake.
I was going to say the games we do have lined up as well. They look like a sort of set of games that look like they have been decided by the footballing side of things. Of thinking, let's get competitive games against tough teams we know, Ebbsfleet, Maidenhead, etc. Cambridge United is less so because it's the first game. It is what it is. But those other games do look like they're really sort of right. Let's get going. Let's get ready. Let's build our shape. Let's build our plans for the 5th of August. It's not long away. Let's play tough games against opposition that we could might not be far off the standard of some of the better teams we're playing in our division this year. So I think that it looks like it's a sensible summer to me. It might not be glamorous, and I'm sure some fans are thinking, God, it's boring, isn't it? We haven't got a lot of games. And I'm sure there's probably some behind closed door friendlies as well. But, if it all helps for August, what does it matter? And also, you don't want to burn players out. There's a lot of games in August and September.
Tough games as well, boys. Tough games. Very tough games.
Right, apart from the unusual kick-off time on Saturday, some other changes down the park, apparently. You two can update us on that.
Yes, Lee, you've been, and I've seen some photos, and there's quite a few changes, isn't there?
It's no longer called the Gorgonzola Geezers Stadium or whatever it was firsthand. But yeah, there's been massive changes. Lots of concrete. I think concrete and scaffolding. But the fans will see for themselves when they come down in their hordes on Saturday. So, but the club are working hard off the pitch to improve the supporter experience down at Clarence Park, and if it does that, then it's a win-win.
Yeah, I suspect some of the changes will be hits. Some of them may be misses with the fans anyway. I suspect there's some changes that may upset some, brackets David Tavener, and I'm sure there's some changes that may improve the experience for some fans as well, thinking of supporters that require accessibility needs, etc. I think that will definitely help them. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of changes. I don't think the loss of the name rights, I know it's still advertised out there, and I'm sure that there might be a company that comes along. I don't think supporters are too bothered about that. Most of the reaction online seems to be, thank goodness. So good to have Clarence Park back again, isn't it, in the name for now? But yeah, big changes at Clarence Park, and be interested to see how fans react to them, because it's probably the biggest changes at the park in quite a while, isn't it?
Just a quick question, Tabs. Question for you, my friend. How much have we got in the kitty? Have we got enough to sort of put a bid in for the Pod of Saints Park at all? Is there enough in there?
Well, it's in the club's commercial brochure. It's from the price says from the naming rights for the ground, £50,000. Should we go for it and we'll do a few other deals as well?
That's £1,000 for you two each, and I've got to stump up the rest of it. That's not fair, boys, is it?
That's off your company card, mate.
Put it on the tab.
Yes, better there. But
in that commercial brochure, there are 24 different items on which you can sponsor the club or be a partner. And if you've got naming rights on the ground, you're a partner. You're not a sponsor, apparently. Crikey, £50,000. That could be a tough one. There's several others which are quite highly priced as well. But have a look at the brochure. You can get to it online, and you may feel like spending a few quid.
I suppose we should also mention off pitch that season ticket prices and ticket prices as well stayed mainly the same. I know there was a slight increase in the renewal, wasn't there, Dave? I think I saw you messaged about that. But it's
Well,
good that
there wasn't a renewal, Jake. There wasn't a
yeah.
renewal price, so it was a 10%
Yeah.
increase of those who had one last year. Yeah, carry on.
Exactly. So there was that, but I think it's good to see the ticket prices stay the same and the season ticket prices. If you compare it to a lot of clubs at this level, I think a lot of the prices at a lot of clubs have really quite shot up this summer. And I think we do have to applaud the club for keeping the prices fairly similar, apart from that 10% increase there. So that's good to see. And I think hopefully that'll again encourage some of the newer fans we've had come along, get a season ticket and come to every game this season, which would be really good to see.
Do you know what? In the various leagues we've been in for the past 10 years, we've been the most expensive club for match day admission. So I think congratulating the club, I shall withhold joining in on that. Just congratulate the likes of Torquay for coming up with a ridiculous price and being far more expensive than us.
It's 22 quid there, isn't it?
20.
Okay, so I'll put a question to you, Taz. Right, the fact is, if we then go out and buy, high-end players, right? There's an argument there for the club to put the admission price up, and then if we were to question, I said, well, hang on a minute, these players, we've got to pay for them somehow, which is what happened when we went up to 15 quid and we approached Nick Archer, I think it was at the time. So, well, look, we've just brought in Theophanis, and we've got to pay for him somehow. So I think the fact is, it swings and roundabouts, mate. We can demand these players coming, these high-end players. Don't forget, Hampton have tried that, and look where they are now. Dover have tried that, and look where they are now. Clubs bigger than us have forked out early doors pre-season and got absolutely nowhere. So I think we've got to. I'm not too. I don't mind the price. The club have done well to keep it as it is. And they've done a really good job at promoting the season tickets. So I think you've got to understand the fact that these clubs have got to pay for themselves somehow, and it would have been so easy for them, again, to put the price up to an unacceptable level.
I think you've misunderstood me slightly there, Lee. I don't advocate getting a big name signing. I'm just saying we haven't done it, and people often say, look, so-and-so signed so-and-so, and dude, I got this player. If we do it, all well and good. I don't advocate going out and getting one, not at all. What I do like to see, and you go all the way back to 1983, 84, John Mitchell got all those local players in. So you can do it, and he was successful. Had 3 or 4 years, great success under him. So you can do it by going with players of a similar standard, as long as they all bond together, which is similar to what we're doing now, but the players are a far wider spread. They're not local ones. They're not star names. It's a case of Nobby blending them all together. And
but football's changed. So local football's changed. You talk about something that happened 30 years ago. And don't forget, the club have religiously tried to sign good young talent, like people who have been scoring goals. Tony Keynes came and went. Sippets came and went from Coney. All these players who local boys. I think it's a stretch now. Don't forget that Dean Austin came and promised this absolutely magnificent ethos of playing local, bringing up through the sort of ranks. He left, when the pound signs were sort of flung in his eyes. The fact of the matter is, that's not always the case now. That model you've just explained to, from John Mitchell 30 years ago. And I think
it's 40 years. 40 years ago. You can't do it now, Lee. You can't bring your local players like that. That's not what I'm saying at all.
But what I'm saying, David, also is the fact that David Noble isn't John Mitchell, and I think that's a point to be had there. John Mitchell was very much established. Young in terms of his managerial career, but he knew the local scene, and I don't think Nobby does know that yet. And I think he's going to rely heavily on those around him, John and the rest of the coaching staff, to get the best out of what he's been given.
No, it won't work with local players at all. Nowadays, the game has changed so much since then. And I'm supporting Nobby. I think we should make that clear. And he's getting a squad of similar pace, similar standard players, so he can interchange quite easily, one would expect. We've not got a big name in there. The only big name we've got is Shaun Jeffers, and I know he can't get in the side. But there we go.
Interesting. You mentioned our former director of football there. We still don't. I thought they were going to appoint one, weren't they? A replacement. We don't have one of those over the summer. So it's been a funny summer, hasn't it? It's been very quiet in some regards, and then a lot's been going on.
I think that after Saturday, when fans see what Clarence Park looks like in its current guise and how the new set of players have sort of fared after 2 hours of football, we might get a few more questions about how things are sort of panning out. But until that time comes, it is what it is, and I'm looking forward to the season. It's going to be bloody tough. I have to say, it's going to be exceptionally tough to get anywhere near the playoffs. For me, at this stage, looking at the teams that have come up and down respectively, I think it's going to be a seriously hard push, and we're going to have to hit that ground running when Weymouth come to town.
Well, it's 20 years now, isn't it? The Conference South has been going, and I can't remember a season when it's likely to be as tough as it looks like being this year. If we get into the playoffs this year, then the club on the pitch certainly will have excelled. Yeah, definitely.
We'll
talking of clubs,
play this back when we win the league by 20 points. Yeah,
exactly, Jake. Quickly touch on Eastbourne Borough, because it's got something to do with Shaun Jeffers. He wasn't making the side at the end of last season. We assume because of the data, because he wasn't running as far as somebody else who couldn't score. Blah blah blah. And now Eastbourne Borough have been bought by a company called Inc., which is run by Simon Leslie, who lives in Radlett. Simon Leslie is the father of Scott Leslie from St Albans City Reserves. And they got rid of manager Danny Bloor, good manager. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. They offered him another position. He wasn't interested. He'd gone to Welling United and signed a whole load of players there. And what Simon has said in his blurb to the local press, Eastbourne will be very much data-led, the players they got now and the players they bring in. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens there. And the first thing they've done is bring in Mark Beard as manager. You may recall, had a little run with us in somewhat troubled times around about the period of Richie Hanlon and Dave Anderson in, 2007?
Oh, heady days those were. Right.
But I think go on, Jake.
I was going to say that, a lot of clubs, I think they might not publicise it, but a lot of clubs now are data-driven to quite an extent, probably, that we would never know about. You see a lot of the players wear those packs on their backs now that track everything. There's a lot of data in football, even at this level. It is absolutely crazy.
I think it'd be more unlikely to find a club that doesn't do it at this level. I wouldn't go as far to say that they would drop their leading goal scorer off the back of it. I think they've still got to have a little bit of footballing common sense applied and some logic. But look, they all do it. But the fact of the matter is that this is the way football goes. Because the fact is, Tavs, it's trying to bring a professionalism. Because these players command a bit of money. The riches are greater. The money for those for getting promoted is greater. So you have to. Otherwise, all that's going to happen is the gulf between a non-league game and a professional game is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's a reason why, Ebbsfleet and your Wildstones, etc. They've done things. They've gone that road. They're looking to sort of train full time, or at least implement that more training, better quality players, better fitness, better regime, better work ethic, better health. All of that things. And that's been implemented at us. And I think we've seen the benefits of that last year. The players look quicker and sharper and fitter. And we then entice like-minded players to the club because of that. The football club it's no longer 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon and 2 hours on a Tuesday. This is a whole week-long thing. They're going to be given programs to work to in terms of their fitness over the course of the summer, those that have stayed. They can expect high things. This is people are expectant now based on the successes of last year. So we need to literally think about being a professional club in that element, although we're not on the pitch.
Well, the way we played on the pitch and the way we treated the players off a pitch, that didn't attract a single player to Clarence Park last season because we know we use the loan system. And that's what we're going to be doing again this year, which is fair enough. That's the way it's going. You threw me off my point I was going to make before that, Lee, but
it's a good one, I bet.
Yeah, well done.
But I think all that is good points. I think, Eastbourne are quite unique in being a club that would promote their data driven, because I think that can certainly leave them and their management team quite open to if it all goes wrong, doesn't it? First they lose the first 5 games of the season, supporters are going to be on their back, aren't they? So it leads a lot of clubs don't openly promote it, but most clubs use it. But I say the professionalism in this division is increasing by the week. It is ridiculous.
It is, and it comes at a high price. Dean Brennan, when he was at Barnet a couple of years ago, he got rid of the tracking data and all that sort of stuff. I suspect he's probably back using it now. And he did what I always think a manager should do: use your eyes and use your head. Don't be totally driven by some 15-year-old geek on a computer who's chucking a load of figures at you.
Nothing wrong with 15-year-old geeks on computers, by the way, David.
Trust your knowledge of a game and trust your eyes, and your eyes will tell you, as a bloke there scores lots of goals. But there we go. Those days are gone, perhaps, and it is all down to computers now.
Little tip for your Tabs. When you get time in the Costa del Dunstable, rent out, if they serve a Blockbuster down that way, I'm pretty sure they have, there's a film called Moneyball. Watch it, and then come back in, because it's about a baseball team they accumulate a roster of players based on stats and facts and figures and analytics, and it was successful. It's a true story. So maybe Eastbourne are going along that sort of plan, but who knows?
Don't remember Brian Clough using too many computers.
Oh yeah, but you're a fucking dinosaur, man. You know what I mean? It was like...
Brian who?
Oh
yeah,
gonna get an email now from Ian Hall.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be quickly on there.
Suppose we should mention as well, St Albans City women have started, have kicked off. There a lot of signings, more signings than the men's side have arrived over the summer, and they started their pre-season last season with a 2-0 win over Northampton, which is really good to see. So I think it's great to see the club progressing with that, and hopefully it all goes really well. And I think it looks like they've built quite a competitive squad. Watching the interview with the coach, Sam Mardle, last week. So that's really good to see.
Absolutely. They're going to be in good hands. Sam, I know Sam is a good lad, excellent coach. So he's going to have them exceptionally well drilled and competitive.
Excellent. Right. Are we doing a pod next week? We've got an interview to do before the season starts. We've got to fit that in the next couple of weeks.
How many times, Jake, do you reckon we've been approached by random people in the street asking us when we got our pod up next? The people have withdrawal symptoms. You crazy cats. You've got nothing else better to do with your time than listen to us three waffle on for an hour. It's outrageous. But thank you nonetheless. My wife was, who the bloody hell's that? Oh, some bloke wanted to know when we're going to do a pod next. I'm like, who is he? I was absolutely no idea. What a lad. But that's the sort of thing. That's the sort of thing we get in the middle of the street. So yeah,
it's great. It's great. I think we should thank everyone that comes off the street and also watches online. Chris, one of our international viewers from America, sent us an interesting video last week, YouTube video about #United. I know, boring, but their issues they've had with kit suppliers in Hummel. Quite an interesting video there. And of course, the Saints, their kit has been delayed by another week. So Chris sent an interesting video, probably isn't related, but thank you very much for that. And thank you to all our viewers, whether you're close or far away. I think the views towards the end of last season, we were absolutely astonished, weren't we? how many people watched it. And it's really good. We really appreciate it. And like Dave says, we've got an interesting interview hopefully lined up. And I suspect there'll be a lot to talk about in the next couple of weeks with the club in general. I think there'll be a lot happening before the season starts. I can't believe it's only 3 weeks away. Where's the summer gone already?
It's not started yet.
I know.
But come down to the Clarence Park on Saturday. If you see either Jake or myself, buy us a beer. Because we're nice people. But thank you. But no, because we had quite a lot of people come up to us at the Oxford game, didn't we? And just say to us how much they enjoyed the pod and, oh my God, I can't, it's really, really nice. It's quite humbling for us because all we are doing is chatting about the club we love. And we're looking forward to the season immensely. Predictions for the season, Tavs, because I think this is important. Pre-season prediction, and then we'll sort of do something as we sort of as the season starts.
Like we said earlier, I think if we get into the top 7, we really have excelled. With so many big clubs there, I'd be surprised if we get there. A lack of goals is a concern. I know we haven't scored this summer yet. There's a good reason for that. But that could be our main problem. And you've got to get midfield right behind it. Yeah, there's still quite a bit of work there, which is going to be a work in progress these next 5 games. Where we will end up at the moment, I think if we're mid-table, we won't have done too badly.
Yeah. Jacob, you're always the beacon of positivity, mate.
Well, yeah, I do actually agree with Dave. I think I was going to suggest sort of a very reserved sort of 10th place would be my sort of optimistic go at the minute, but that's with a lot to do with the build of the squad at the minute. And I think my key, maybe not prediction, but message to supporters would be, it's the 12th of July. Have some faith and have some sort of patience. I know this summer might not have seen us sign the amazing players we thought we would after getting to a playoff final, but let Nobby and Meeks build the squad and give them time. There's going to be, I'm sure there'll be lots of up and downs. We had lots of up and downs last season and we got to a playoff final. Have some faith, keep some time, give them a chance, and we'll see where we are, a month or 2 into the season. But there's no need to panic. There's no need to stress right now. Enjoy your summer. Everyone just chill out. It's football. Let's just enjoy the ride.
What about you, Lee? How's your optimism for the season?
Oh, mate, champions by Christmas at an absolute canter. No, honestly, I mean, listen, but I think people have a right to get stressed out about it and to question it, because the thing is, that's what pre-season's for, and I think it's only a reactionary response to what they've seen, the club do. I've said to you beforehand, I think I've said to you this for the last sort of month or so, if we get anywhere near the playoffs, we have done exceptionally well. We have done above and beyond. It probably even eclipses our efforts from last year, considering just alone, not because the players we've signed, but because who else is in the division. I think that's going to be a massive key factor. But anywhere near the playoffs, I've done exceptionally well. But mid-table, I'm pretty much with, the same as you two boys. On that note,
we'll review it in a few months' time. Yes, on that note. well, we'll see you at Clarence Park on Saturday. All being well, yes?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Hopefully. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Cheerio.